I'm Esther Guardado, the proud president of the Tampa Hispanic Bar Association. And today I am honored to interview Tampa's own Judge Michael Baggé Hernández in anticipation of a wonderful event that's taking place next week at the Florida Jurist, recognizing Hispanic excellence. Good afternoon, Your Honor. How are you?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for taking the time to interview me. Thank you so much to the Tampa Hispanic Bar Association for everything that they do, especially being here today, as well as the other bar associations across the state. I'm really honored to be here. So thank you so much.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's our pleasure. You and I think it's well known. You do so much for the Tampa Bay community, for the Tampa Hispanic Bar Association, and I know for the Florida community at large. And I couldn't be happier to be here with you today. Your Honor, I know you were appointed to the bench in 2020 by Governor DeSantis, and you're in Hillsborough County. Is that correct?
Well, I was appointed in 2019, and then I took the bench in 2020. But yes, by Governor DeSantis, that's correct.
Wonderful. And you had a somewhat of an interesting journey getting to the bench. 5 or 6 years you served as a U.S. Assistant U.S. Attorney in Puerto Rico and with the Middle District of Florida. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. I am what they call Tampeño. I'm from Tampa. But my family came from Cuba. I grew up here. I went to Jesuit High School, Florida State for undergrad, and then Stetson for law school. So I really am Tampeño. And the opportunity and I started at the state attorney's office. The opportunity to come to go to Puerto Rico came up with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I said, why not? So I took it. My Spanish has always been very good. But my legal Spanish was non-existent. And going to Puerto Rico, especially in federal court, they speak in English, but in state court, they do things in Spanish. And so I was able to really learn a lot of the legal terms, because even though in federal court, it's spoken in English, I was able to learn these terms because back at the office, everyone's saying them in Spanish. So you have to pick it up pretty quick. But I loved it. I loved my time down there. I loved living in Puerto Rico. I loved living on the island. The interesting thing is in Puerto Rico, the federal courts there appealed to the First Circuit, which is up in Boston. So I had an opportunity to argue appeals up in Boston. In fact, one time in January of 2014, I was asked to go argue in a couple appeals up in Boston, and it was about 85 degrees in San Juan. I got in the plane and I landed in Boston, and it was 5 degrees with a -20 wind chill. It was so cold, I couldn't breathe. I said, why did I do this? Why am I doing this right now? But it worked out. It ended up being okay, and I got to get back on the plane and go back to my island.
Right. Yes, I am also a Tampanian, very proud Tampeña here. We're very happy that you came back to Tampa, to the Tampa Bay area to serve us as well as you are. And I can only imagine how wonderful that experience in Puerto Rico was. And I know, because I've spoken to you on a number of occasions, that your Spanish is perfect. So, I can't even imagine how wonderful that experience was. But can you give me a little bit? You've indicated that you are of Cuban American background. Did you ever encounter any issues getting on the bench or practicing law as a result of your background?
Well, it's interesting. One of the wonderful things about Florida, I think, and especially the Tampa Bay area, what people kind of forget about Tampa is we've had Hispanics coming here since the 1800s. In fact, when Jose Marti from Cuba came to the United States to ask for help for Cuban independence, he came to Tampa because there had been Cubans here. Now, my family came much after that time. They came because of the political situation that had occurred in Cuba, but they came to a place that they certainly felt that was welcoming to them. And that's one of the reasons I really love my community is, the United States gave us freedom but Tampa gave us a home. Florida gave us a home. So that's why I really, really, really love this community. But of course, absolutely, there's always going to be issues. And when you're in a mixing bowl, there's going to always be issues with that. I remember growing up, I was the translator for my grandmother. We would go, I guess I'm dating myself when I say this, but we would go to Eckert's. I don't know if anybody still remembers that.
Oh, sure.
And I would help my grandmother.
Absolutely.
Yep, and I would help my grandmother translate, from for the pharmacist, or just going to Publix and buying groceries. And that was one of those things that I would do. And it was just one of those. I was doing it all the time because my grandmother needed the help, and I was there. And I see kids that come into my courtroom doing that, or brothers and sisters or friends, and doing that for folks here. And of course, in civil court, you don't get an interpreter. So it gives me a point of pride that when somebody who only speaks Spanish comes to my courtroom, and they don't understand, and a 10-year-old is translating for his or her mom or dad, I can say, no se preocupe, yo hablo, and it puts people at ease, that they know that in my courtroom, I may not rule for them, but they have a voice. So that's really important for me, that they have that anybody who speaks Spanish that comes to my courtroom has a voice. But being Hispanic certainly does come with challenges as well, especially with having a double last name. I've been called Judge Hernández a lot, and that's okay. But typically in the Hispanic world, the paternal last name is first, and the maternal last name is second, at least for men. And sometimes what women will do is they'll put their paternal last name second, and first, and then their married last name second. They prefer going by that. So it's one of those things that maybe if you're not used to that particular custom, it may throw you off, or not know what to do. So I recognize that, and I recognize that yes, we have a very rich culture and history in Tampa, but one of the wonderful things about it is that we get to share that culture and with everybody, and everyone gets to see who we are. So I'm very proud of that.
I am too. And I too shared some of the same experiences, having been born and raised here in Tampa, of Cuban immigrants. And my grandmother was a Spaniard who didn't speak English. So I served in that role as translator for most of my life as well, proudly. And I have witnessed you in court. I have witnessed, I am so thankful that we call Tampa our home, because I know there are other Hispanic jurists. I know how comfortable people are in your courtroom and other Hispanic judges' courtrooms when they don't know the language, and you make them feel at ease. And that is just crucial.
It's funny. One of the things that, because I go into interpreter mode, and I can feel myself doing it. So I'll start putting my hand over my eyes, and I'll say, somebody will say something in Spanish, and then it will come out in English. And God bless the interpreters for what they do, because I don't think I can go as fast as they can. And I have to really concentrate when I do it. But there's certain times you just get so used to, saying things. Have you read the complaint? Usted ha leído la demanda? Okay, counsel, what is the amount that's contained on the complaint? Licenciado, ¿cuánto es la cantidad contenida en la demanda? Okay, ¿cómo usted quiere proceder? ¿Usted quiere admitir las alegaciones contenidas en la demanda o quiere negarse de las alegaciones contenidas en la demanda? Do you want to admit or deny the allegations contained in the complaint? You get so used to those words that it just becomes a part of you, and it's much easier for them to flow out. But yeah, it's one of those things that if you don't speak the language, it can present a little bit of a challenge when you have to come to court.
Absolutely. And as I indicated, I know you put a lot of people at ease, because it is a daunting, especially when you don't speak the language. I know I was trying to do this without my cheaters, but I'm going to have to put my glasses on. But
no judgment zone here. There's no judgment zone.
thank
Even though we're in a
you.
courtroom, no judgment.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you. You talked about some of the challenges that you experienced growing up as a Cuban American, a Hispanic American in Florida. Was there something in your upbringing that you feel helped to get you where you are today?
Absolutely. You know, one of the, I guess this is kind of going back to the challenges. I remember when one time my grandmother wanted to buy a new car, and she asked me to go with her and help her buy this new car. Or new, at least new to her. So I went to the dealership, and you know, she was swindled and took advantage of her because she didn't speak English. And of course, took advantage of me because I was a kid translating for an elderly person. So is one of those things that was really important to me, and being able to go from that to be able to learn from that experience, and it really motivated me. It really motivated me into going into the practice of law. It really motivated me into being able to do something good with my career that would help the common good. And so taking that experience, as well as, you know, in high school, we were obligated to do community service hours. And as a teenager, you don't want to do any of that type of stuff. You know, I'm studying, I'm busy, I want to hang out with my friends. But my high school obligated me to do so. And from those two experiences, I really got a sense of this is my community. How do I make it better? And I think about that all the time. What am I doing to make my community a better place for everyone who wants to live here? Everybody who wants to call Florida their home, everybody that wants to call Tampa their home. And then, you know, when I moved back from Puerto Rico, and there were so many folks from the island that were moving back or moving to Florida for the first time and calling it home. That was one of the things too that also motivated me as well, because I wanted to help these folks that may not otherwise know what Florida is like, what to expect when they get here, how to get your driver's license, how to get your tags, those types of things. I've dedicated my life to service, and service is something that's really important to me.
And it shows, and we thank you for it, Judge. You talked about some of the motivations that led you to the bench. I think I know the answer to this because a particular role model that is in your life has certainly been a role model for me. But can you talk about the role models in your life that led you where you are today?
The obvious one, of course, is my mother, Virginia Covington. You know, she was the first female Hispanic appointed to the second DCA, the Second District Court of Appeals. And then she was the first female Hispanic to be appointed to the Middle District of Florida. Before that, there had never been a female Hispanic person on the federal court in the Middle District of Florida. Also, she was the first female chief that the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Middle District of Florida had. So without a doubt, she is somebody who is my role model, somebody to bounce ideas off of. She's my mom. You know, so she's played such an important role in my life. I teach a lot. In fact, I teach rule of law a lot in Latin America. And she is somebody that got me really involved in that, because it's really important. In Latin America, they're changing their legal system, and they need, the department has sent folks like me, like my mom, who are Spanish speaking and have a lot of trial experience to teach our counterparts in Latin America. And so I got the love of doing that from her. But without a doubt, my grandmother also is a huge role model for me. And when I got on the plane to leave Puerto Rico for the last time, and I don't know if anyone out there has ever done this or been to Puerto Rico, flown to Puerto Rico, but when you get in the airplane or when you get to the airport in San Juan, typically just usually how the winds are flying, when the plane takes off, it banks, it goes south, and then it will head north. And the last thing, you go past the airport, You go past Isla Verde, which is a beach, Condado, which is, another area of town. And then the last thing that you see when you're there is El Morro. El Morro is this old Spanish fort that essentially for several centuries was the thing that when the boats were coming from Spain, it was the last thing that, or the first thing that folks would see welcoming them to the Caribbean. And of course, the last thing that they would see when they were leaving. And when I saw this, it really affected me emotionally. And the reason it affected me emotionally, not so much because I was leaving these friends that I had met, 5 years of friendship, not so much, I was leaving a job that I really enjoyed. It was really because I thought of my grandmother, because when she left Cuba to come to the United States, going from a place that she had never been to, and escaping what she had to escape and coming here, it was a very emotional experience for me, and the bravery that she had to make this new life. And I just could imagine that the last thing that she probably saw when she left Cuba was El Morro that's in Havana Bay. So it was a very emotional, that flight was a very emotional experience for me, because the only thing I could really think about is my grandmother. And even now, just thinking about it, I can still feel some of those emotions coming out, and how lucky we are. And although she never lived to see me take the bench, she saw my law school graduation, and it was the last thing she saw before she passed. So, it was the right decision. The United States has been so good to us. Florida has been so good to us. My home community, Tampa, has been so good to us. So my grandmother is one of my role models as well.
That's beautiful, Your Honor. I could not agree with you more. My mother was a political prisoner, and we are so unbelievably fortunate and so happy to be here in the country that we call home. And I can't imagine having gone through what my mother went through at 23. She was 23 months in prison, and then came to Tampa. And I would not want to live anywhere else but Tampa. I love this community. I love the diversity that this community has afforded us. I love the freedom, obviously, that this country has afforded us. And I'm so proud of my background. I'm so proud that your grandmother was able to experience you graduating from law school. And I'm sure she would be extremely proud of you. I'm sure she was proud of you.
Well, thank you.
So, because I know the man that you are, and I'm sure that you were the boy that would have made any grandmother proud. So I, as I indicated, share some of your background and echo your sentiments regarding this community and regarding the Florida legal community and the Florida community as a whole, and how wonderfully diverse it is. And I think that cultural diversity on the bench is so important, and I was hoping that you could share your thoughts on that as well.
Well, one of the things is that I, as a Spanish speaker, and I think this is important. We talked a little bit about this before. Having folks who can speak Spanish, who can understand not only what's being said, but also where folks are coming from. I've been in some of those lines that people have been in order to get legal documents in Puerto Rico. And when I hear those types of arguments or those types of things happening in other countries, I can visually picture myself standing in a line waiting for this stamp or that stamp. So I understand. But the other thing is that we are a melting pot. Our state is a melting pot. Tampa is a melting pot. So to have representation on our bench that reflects what our community looks like, it's important, because people have to have some sort of faith in the legal system, faith that their arguments are being heard. Faith that the judge has an understanding of where they're coming from. Doesn't mean we always rule in the way that they want, but at least they understand that we have an idea of where they're coming from. So diversity is important because our community is diverse, and our bench should reflect that diversity.
I couldn't agree with you more, Judge. Given your mother's background and the experiences that you've shared with her, do you think we've gotten better at having diversity on the bench that's proportional to the minority groups that are in this community or in Florida?
That's, there are so many. I think here in Hillsborough County, we have 61 different judges, and we're soon to have 7 more. And I think we're getting better. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. We're not perfect. But our bench reflects a lot of different backgrounds, at least in Hillsborough County. I believe we're actually majority female on our bench, although don't quote me on those numbers, but there's certainly a lot more representation than what our bench looked like 100 years ago. So perfection, of course not, but we're getting better every day. And the other thing too is we have great judges in Hillsborough County, some of the finest judges in the state, and I'd even argue in the country, in their legal acumen, their experience. It's not just diversity of background, but it's also diversity of experience as well, that we have. And I don't know. I guess I'm very proud of Tampa. I'm very proud of what we're doing here. And of course, I love my colleagues across the state, but soy tampeño. What can I tell you?
Listen, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. There's a lot to be proud of here in Tampa Bay, and not just because we're known as Champa Bay now, but certainly with regard to the legal community, much to be proud of. I know you're very big on mentorship and that you give back in that manner often. Can you tell us a little bit about your ideas with regard to internships, mentorships as they relate to the legal field?
They're great. No, in all seriousness, they are great. But here's the thing with mentorships. Last scholastic year, including summer and spring and fall, I had 9 mentees from different universities throughout the state, and actually, now that I think about it, throughout the country, we had some that were out of state. I've had 5 interns in the past year. It was one of the things that was instrumental for me when I was a student. It gave me exposure to a lot of different things. Judge Bucklew, actually, I didn't mention her, but she was as a mentor. But she was certainly a mentor for me. I interned for her when I was a student, and I was able to use something that I had written, one of her orders that I had written, as an example for when I went to Puerto Rico, and as a writing sample, because it served as something that I had done in federal court. So I'm really big on internships. I'm really big on mentorships. My only beef, and this is a little beef, but I will ask students, please call me, contact me, let me know if I can be of help. And sometimes the students are a little timid and shy about contacting me. And I say, fortune favors the bold here. You have to ask. You have to ask. And you have to go, especially if somebody is saying that, feel free to call them. Feel free. Let's have a Zoom meeting. Let's have a conversation. But you can't be afraid, especially when somebody's making the offer. So that's my only beef. But I'll take any intern I've had or mentee. For the most part, I've had folks from various backgrounds, Hispanic, Asian, African American, African, Hispanic, Anglo, it really runs the gamut. I just want them to be excited about the law, to be wanting to do good things with what they learn, and be willing to pay it forward when it comes time for them to serve as a mentor, and not shy away from that.
I think that's wonderful, Judge. Judge, you've talked about your journey, the journey that got you to the bench. What would you say to an aspiring jurist that that is on the same track or a similar track, or one of your mentees, with regard to what they need to do to align themselves to get on the bench?
Well, here's the thing. You can't be afraid of challenging yourself. I went to Puerto Rico not because it was easy, not because it was an island in the Caribbean, although that brings its own challenges. I went there because I heard it was one of the toughest places to practice in the country. And that's one of the things that led me there. When I started teaching overseas, I took that on as a challenge. Again, not because it was easy. I really had to make sure that when I was representing the United States across to our partners and allies in Latin America, that I would do a good job. So I really had to make sure that I crossed my T's and dotted my I's. But I was challenging myself. Arguing appeals, appellate work for a trial lawyer is not always easy. It's not. In fact, it's not easy at all. But it's about But you know what? It's about challenging yourself. There's no set path to becoming a judge. I have my way that I did it, but that might not work for the next person. But what will work is to continually challenge yourself, to make yourself better. Be afraid of being stagnant. Be afraid of just getting good in one area, and not going out and trying to tackle more things. That's, I think, the one way that you will not become a judge. And then the other thing too, of course, is your reputation is everything. You spend a whole career trying to build your reputation, but the moment something comes out, you might tarnish your reputation. So make sure, be very, very careful with that.
I couldn't agree with you more on this topic as well, Your Honor. With regard to, let's say, a diverse mentee who is interested in going to law school, or is interested, or is a lawyer already and is interested in getting on the bench one day, other than what you've already discussed, are there any other special challenges, considerations that a culturally diverse candidate might face or might want to know before they dive into this path?
You really have to know the area that you're at. You have to understand your community and the makeup of your community and who is in your community. And so, although your background may be, maybe it's not you're the minority community in that community, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be accepting. Again, I take a lot of pride in the fact that my state is very accepting to folks who are coming here from other places, whether you're coming from overseas or you're coming from up north to the south. I think we're very accepting here in Florida and welcoming of folks coming from other places. We're very unique like that from the rest of the country. But you have to understand the people that you're serving and get to know the community that you're serving. And if you're the type that's afraid to get out of your bubble, I think you're going to find a lot of difficulties. So, make sure that whatever your background is, you're not afraid to go and experience new things, get to talk to people that have a different idea of what you think things are. Be friendly with as many people. You don't have to agree with them, but be as friendly and be willing to listen. I think that's really the key thing here.
I think you've knocked that out of the park as far as how you comport yourself on a daily basis. So we want to thank you for talking to us today, Your Honor. And thank you, as I indicated earlier, for everything you do for us. And I wish you a long and healthy and prosperous time on the bench. And I love the way you serve our community, and I know you will continue to do so for many years. So thank you, Your Honor. Have a great afternoon.
Well, thank you to you, and thank you so much for your kind words. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you to the Tampa Hispanic Bar Association, as well as all the other partner bar associations across the state for this great event. I'm happy to be here, and I look forward to seeing what everybody else has produced. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.